Um, Lots of stuff happened in the NBA today. We can't even get to all of it in this podcast. I am joined from Dallas by Tim Band McMahon.
Howdy, partner.
McMahon, your boys in Houston had a move today.
Never boring, never boring.
And joining us also to talk about it from Seattle is the machine Kevin Pelton, whose trade grades, it's in the evening East Coast time on Wednesday. The trade grades are up. And Pelton, you were not exactly kind to this deal. Russell Westbrook going to Washington for John Wall and a protected first-round pick. I believe it starts in 2023. Mm-hmm. Is that right, McMahon?
That's correct.
Lottery protected and then some protections rolling over. Sort of a far-off first-round pick. Pelton, this is one for the annals. This is not a type of trade we normally see. We've seen blockbuster trades, but this is, I guess it's a blockbuster trade, but it feels like something else. What did you think about this? And go ahead and give your grades.
Yeah, it definitely does not qualify as a win-win trade in my view. I mean, I think the general perspective I get on it is it's basically saying, hey, we have this guy who's a problem here. You have this guy who's a problem there. Why don't we see if we swap them and maybe it'll solve the other's problems? But I don't know that the fit is actually any better for either of these two players in their new destination than it was in their old destination. So I gave Houston a C+ because I do think getting the protected pick down the road is a positive out of this trade, and Washington in large part because of giving up that pick, a D.
Yeah, and look, the Rockets were realistic about Russ's value. They felt like if they went into the season, maybe he could boost it a little bit. But as soon as they were able to get a first-round pick, it feels like they pounced on this. They just want to make sure they were able to get one, significant asset, whether that's a young player or a first-round pick, in addition to what's a pretty rough salary swap.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost within a couple $100,000. It's the exact same amount of money. They both have 2 years with a player option on it. It's the contracts, considering that they're two of the most difficult contracts in the league. They are equal contracts.
Right, albatross contracts.
And by the way,
swap of albatross deals.
Just to make sure that it came through, because you it was sort of quiet at the end there. You gave the Wizards a D on this deal.
That is correct. Yeah.
D as in dog.
We're dud.
So McMahon, why, knowing you've written about this, why would the Rockets do this now?
Because they could.
When they could trade. Okay.
Yeah. Because they knew they were hoping Russ could restore his value a little bit, but they knew they weren't getting 2 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps back for him, which is what they gave up to get him along with Chris Paul. I mean, you look at this; they got one of those picks back, and man, Russ wanted out. That was obvious. That was well known. He didn't want to play with James anymore. They don't look at this necessarily as, okay, Russ is gone, now we got to move. They don't look at that at all as Russ is gone, now we got to move James.
But you don't think that James is like jumping for joy?
No, I don't think
this didn't salvage anything.
Listen, James Harden didn't talk to the media today. Sounds pretty unlikely that he's going to talk tomorrow. If he was jumping for joy, I think he'd answer questions that he knows people are waiting to ask him. No, this doesn't save the Rockets as far as keeping Harden in Houston by any stretch of the imagination, but it does not in any way, shape, or form increase the urgency. They are still hoping, and I was actually corrected, confident that they can be competitive this season. Look, they understand if they're not competitive this season, they're probably going to have to move Harden before the trade deadline. But they got that Russ didn't have much of a market. They're not settling for 70 cents on the dollar for Harden unless there's absolutely no choice in the matter. And that's not I don't think that's a this season situation of there being no real choice.
Well, he right now says he wants to go to Brooklyn. It's not an open market. if you don't like your hand, one option is to just
Right.
wait it out to see how your hand develops. The thing about it is that Wall is kind of like Westbrook in that he's a speed guard who doesn't shoot very well. I mean, he has moments where he shoots well, but he doesn't shoot very well. But he's not as good as Westbrook.
And he hadn't played in 2 years.
Exactly. Like
there were durability concerns with Russ. This guy just missed 2 years of basketball.
Right. And by the way, he hasn't, I think December 26, 2018 was the last time he played. And I have to wonder now, Wall has been doing workouts and we've heard, good things. How do the Rockets even know what he looks like?
Well, has anyone been involved in them? I mean, DeMarcus Cousins, they do have.
But I mean, are you taking DeMarcus Cousins to scouting on one of his best friends in the world?
He's apparently played pickup ball with Harden.
Are they going to James Harden and saying, James, what's your scouting report on John Wall? I mean, I'm sure they did due diligence. I just don't know what it was.
Yeah, I can't imagine that that they're not having a conversation with Harden, but look, let's be realistic. They didn't make this trade because they think John Wall's going to, pick up in his prime. I mean, that they made this trade because they knew they were going to have to take back bad salary with Russ, and at least they were getting a first round pick too.
Yeah, I mean,
they the Russ situation, it was going to be really ugly. I mean, it was not going to be any fun, and we'll see.
I mean,
we'll
Russ
see if the
makes
Harden
things
situation gets ugly.
Russ makes things uncomfortable generally. He can make things uncomfortable just because it's Wednesday. When he's not happy, it can really get interesting. So
yes,
I get it, and I saw some of the quotes that Eric Gordon. I think you reported them. Eric Gordon met with the media, and he was trying to put a good face on it, but
I mean, he wasn't even. He was basically saying, "Look, you got to ask those guys. Like they're here," which at the time they were.
But he wasn't like, "This is going to be miserable."
Yeah, high expectation. I mean, he was giving lip service, but is James still on board? It's a question you have to ask him.
Man, well, obviously, the fact that they got the pick was an acknowledgement that they may have downgraded a little bit. It's just hard. I mean, he I will say this: he tore his Achilles 17 or 18 months ago, so he is off of it by quite a bit. Like I saw Dwight Powell from the Mavericks. You reported on this. He tore his Achilles in January, and he is expecting to be full go at the start of the season.
Right.
So he's on the 11-month thing.
Yeah, an Achilles recovery typically to being fully cleared is as anywhere from 8 to 12. Wes Matthews came back in 8. I don't know. Kobe might have been similar to that, but that 8 to 12. And then, obviously there's some extra time here, just like KD has some extra time. But, look, a speed guy coming off an Achilles, I mean, it's obviously Washington was selling at the ultimate low.
So, Pelton, do you see, they were already going to change their style of play. They made a major investment in Christian Wood, a 3-year, $41 million contract, and a sign and trade to be their starting center. They had signed DeMarcus Cousins, who is very close with John Wall. Two of the best friends played at Kentucky together. I did a feature on John Wall a couple of years ago, basically when he was earning this contract. He had a career best season and then got the Supermax, and John was playing so well. I went to D.C. and spent some time with him. And then a couple of days later, I was in Sacramento and I talked to DeMarcus Cousins about John and about their relationship. And I mean, it's not like it's hidden; it's a well-reported thing. But they talk with each other every day. Like they are, as close as two guys who are on different teams can be in the league. At least they have been. I haven't talked with either of them about it in a while. But how do you think the Rockets? Last year obviously they played super small ball, cleared everything out. How do you think the Rockets are going to play? How do you think John Wall, just assuming some level of contribution, how do you think it's going to work?
So if they do get something resembling the John Wall we saw before the injuries, and it's worth remembering that, you really have to go back, I think, to the 2017 playoffs when the Wizards lost in 7 games in an epic second round series against Boston. That's the last time that we really saw a healthy John Wall. He wasn't the same player either in 2017-18 or in 18-19 when he was dealing with the bone spurs in his heel. Before then, well, he was rehabbing that surgery. He ruptured the Achilles. It's kind of a
He
long
slipped in the
story.
shower was the story, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
or got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I think, and didn't have the boot
okay.
on, something like that. But if you do get something close to that John Wall, I mean, he could make sense because one thing that John Wall has always been exceptional at is setting up corner threes, which plays very well into the Houston system. And I think there will be a more dramatic style change probably at the defensive end where, Christian Wood and then even Wall to an extent, they're not as ideally suited to switching everything as the Houston personnel we saw last season. You're still going to want to switch a lot with James Harden. But now you have an actual center-sized player on the court to protect the rim. But offensively, Christian Wood can shoot the three, did it very well last season. I do think we'll probably see more pick and roll from them because now you've got that lob threat again, like they had with Clint Capella. But that again plays to what John Wall can do. So I do think you'll see more pick and roll. And if he can get into the paint, if he is still that kind of athletic force, then he's going to have some shooters to find in the corner.
McMahon, I wonder if Daryl Morey traded for 3 first-round picks in his whole tenure as the Rockets GM. I know he traded Omer Asik for a first-round pick, but I'm trying.
Back in the Kyle Lowry, like that asset accumulation.
Right. He got a bunch of them, then gave them up for Harden. In the post Harden, I think you might have a point.
Okay.
But no, this is they've done some asset. They're in asset accumulation mode. Christian Wood he's
traded for 3.
Right.
Traded 3 firsts.
Yeah.
And traded away 1.
Right. And Christian Wood is a young guy to where if they do pivot to the post Harden era, which let's be realistic is a likely scenario in the foreseeable future, whether it's before the deadline next off season. I mean, it would be it would take a pretty significant turnaround for James Harden to recommit to the Rockets after turning down a $103 million extension. But they've got they've got some young pieces and picks that they can start a transition with.
I want to talk about this from the Washington side. You gave Washington a D. Now, in theory, they acquired the better player, the healthier player. Russell Westbrook was all NBA last year, if I'm not mistaken. They have a lineup that they can put shooting on the court. Pelton. They have Davis Bertans, so they just invested in majorly. They have Bradley Beal, obviously a terrific outside shooter. Thomas Bryant, who's their sort of developmental center. I don't know if he's still that anymore. He's in their rotation. He is he doesn't shoot high volume, but he's not a bad perimeter shooter. There could be some lineups where they could do this, and one of the things they're trying to do is they got to make sure Bradley Beal stays happy. Atlanta, the team that is going to be competing with the back end of the playoffs, has just made major upgrades to their roster. Scott Brooks was his coach in Oklahoma City. I'm not sure that makes a difference. Westbrook it's not like he's going to go to Scott Brooks and say, "Oh yes, I played my best basketball with Scott Brooks. We're going to be okay." But there is some familiarity there. Does this not help Washington advance at all in their quest to get to the playoffs?
It helps. I'm not sure if it helps enough. I mean, the big question mark with both this Wizards team and that Hawks team that, hypothetically they're chasing for the 8th seed. And those are, the teams in 8th and 9th on average in the projections that I ran earlier this week using ESPN's Real Plus Minus. It's going to be the defensive end of the court. Like both of those teams are going to be able to score, but can they stop anyone? That was the problem for Washington last season. I think with the final game of the year, they slipped I think they slipped like ahead of Cleveland into 29th, but maybe they slipped behind them into 30th. That was like a race that was taking place with only one of those teams active in the bubble. And if you bring in Russell Westbrook, not that they were any great shakes defensively at the point last season when they had Isaiah Thomas starting for the first 4 months. I don't know that that's going to help you at that end where they have tried to upgrade with Robin Lopez.
I'm also going to be fascinated to see the fit, the chemistry with Russ and Bradley Beal. One thing that Russ made for Harden, this was, his wanting to move on is more about, feeling like the realistic championship window and with the Rockets is closing or has closed. With Russ, he told the Rockets, I want to be able to, quote, play my game. After pushing to be traded to play with James Harden, he didn't like it. He didn't like being second fiddle. I thought he was able to play his game for the last 2.5 months before the shutdown happened, but he wasn't happy. And look, if playing Russ's game is MVP Russ, everything revolves around him, ball in his hands. I don't see how he can do that in Washington because that's Bradley Beal's team.
I mean, I guess if you're going to be optimistic, maybe the model is what we saw that last year for Russ in Oklahoma City, where Paul George really was kind of their first option on offense. It was the lowest usage rate we've seen from Westbrook since he emerged as an all-star. So maybe there's a window where the two of them can work it out in that same way.
Don't you have to think, now I haven't done reporting on this yet. I'll have some conversations in the next day or two. Maybe I'll get an answer. Maybe I won't. But my feel is that Bradley Beal had to approve this. And to me, everything Washington does in the short term here is to keep Bradley Beal invested.
Well, if we learned anything from the last Westbrook trade, it's that the star signing off on the newcomer doesn't mean it always works out as well in practice.
Right, but I think it's more about he was ready to move on from playing with John Wall.
It's not like they had just a harmonious.
Well, they tried to sell
marriage.
that they did. They tried for years to sell that they did.
Yeah, after both admitting publicly, I don't really like that dude.
I will say this. John Wall is extremely popular in DC. He's been very active in the community there. The fans like the way he plays. He did have a couple of really good seasons for them. Played through injury at times, which I think the fans appreciated. Was he and Beal were definitely cocky at times. They definitely were not able to live up to what they thought they could be. But that is a real change. That's a real change there. Like, I think because the Wizards fan base isn't rabid, maybe it's not recognized as much, but this is a guy who's been there for 10 years. Now, former number 1 overall pick. Like, this was not something that the Wizards, I think, came to lightly. I'm sure something that ownership had to consider very carefully. But that's a huge, huge change there. And, he doesn't play for 2 years and the fans don't, even get to sort of have any kind of closure. I do think that's, there are going to be some John Wall fans who are pouring one out tonight, who are looking forward to seeing him come back in a couple of weeks. So I think it's going to be quite an integration. It's like, okay, you guys were getting ready to play and your mind was set on this. And also Tommy Shepard, their GM, was on the record saying that A, he wasn't trading John Wall, and B, John Wall hadn't asked for a trade, which it was widely reported. It's kind of like Kevin Durant, who claimed fake news that Harden ever spoke to him once about playing with him on the Nets.
There are times that line is part of their job requirement, and it's on us to figure it out. I don't think that one was a tough one to figure out.
I think that's right. And I still don't 100% know why John Wall decided to ask for a trade. Maybe he'll talk about it. Maybe he won't. He was mentioned in trade rumors for Westbrook around the draft, and then seemed to ask for a trade.
And at the time, the Wizards weren't willing to give up a first-round pick, or what would have happened then?
Yeah. So something changed, and I wonder if that change was ownership. I wonder if that change was Bradley Beal. I wonder if that change was Wall coming in and making it seem like he was going to make it difficult. But something changed the Wizards' mind because they were the ones who put the pick in. That's what I'm sure got it done. was adding the pick. And that, I would like to know more about that. What caused it to change? But Pelton, very hard on this trade, C plus D. Definitely not the type of trade that it's one of those trades where everybody's just like, wow, this is a sad trade. But
I mean, it really is. And we've talked a lot about what these changes mean in the short term, and understandably so. But it's just remarkable what similar situations these two teams are in terms of they had these point guards that may or may not have actually requested a trade, but certainly seemed unhappy. And they've got these shooting guards with a couple years left on their contracts before a player option allows them to get to free agency. If you want to call Harden a shooting guard, he's sort of a point guard too. And you're trying to keep them happy, but you know that eventually the reality is you're probably going to have to trade them. So to me, as I was kind of thinking through this, it's like maybe 1/3. What does it mean for in the short term is you view these two teams with Beal and Harden, but it's probably got to be about 2/3 what they look like after those two guys are gone. And at that point, I'm not sure the Westbrook-Wall part of the swap really makes a difference. What's going to really be noticeable is if, Washington ends up giving a pick in the late lottery to Houston.
Well, we'll see. There's still more business to be done. We've still got Giannis out there, and we've still got AD to get settled, and still got Harden to get settled. It's a lot, man. All right. Well, thank you, Jordan, for joining us, Pelton. Dave McMenamin is going to join us in a moment here to talk about the stuff that happened in LA today. And all right, take care, Kevin.
Thanks for having me.
Do you remember being in your favorite sport clips, waiting for that great MVP haircut experience, watching all of those sports, hanging out and having great conversations? Yeah, how about if they made that wait time for it even shorter? Now, with on-deck text alerts, you can get a 15-minute heads up when it's time to head in. Add another text alert when you're next in line, so that you won't have to waste any time getting your hair cut by the finest professionals in the business. It also gives you more ways to save time, making your MVP haircut experience feel more like prime time. Sport Clips, it's good to be a guy. In a time when self-care is more important than ever, every day is an opportunity to skip damaging styling tools and chemicals and focus on better hair growth from within. Nutrafol is formulated with potent botanicals to help you grow hair as strong as you are. It's a physician-formulated product to be 100% drug-free. They use natural, clinically effective botanicals for better hair growth through whole body health. On top of thicker, stronger hair without lasers or chemicals, Nutrafol's ingredients may also help you get a handle on better sleep, stress response, skin, nails, and libido. Who doesn't want all of that? When you subscribe, you'll receive monthly delivery so you never miss a dose. Shipping is free and you can pause or cancel anytime. Does it work? Yes. In clinical studies, Nutrafol users saw thicker, stronger hair growth with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months. Whether you're experiencing thinning or not, you deserve hair as strong as you are. Nutrafol can help you achieve your best hair growth naturally. You can grow thicker, healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com and using the promo code HOOP to get 20% off. This is their best offer available anywhere, plus free shipping on every order. Get 20% off at Nutrafol.com, promo code HOOP. Their best offer anywhere, 20% off at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code HOOP for hair as strong as you are. All right, now subbing in for the machine and joining us from Los Angeles is Dave McMenamin. Dave, welcome in.
Hey, fellas. Nothing going on, right?
Big NBA news day on a Wednesday in early December. So today, and this one hit me kind of out of the blue, Dave. I don't know if you had any indication that LeBron James is going to sign an $85 million contract extension. This is the 8th contract of LeBron's career, and I think it is the most unexpected. really good news for Laker fans. Not that I think there was anything to worry about, but it's a vote of confidence in the medium term of the Lakers. No options in this contract. LeBron is now locked to the Lakers through 2023. What did you think about this?
I think it was surprising to me too. I had heard, maybe this was a possibility, especially because of the Anthony Davis scenario where, maybe Anthony wouldn't expose himself to be committed to the Lakers beyond a certain point where LeBron was no longer on the books. But I think it's kind of by the LeBron playbook he's already shown. Win the championship in 2016, commit to the franchise for a longer amount of time with Cleveland, because what is he about? He's about the ability to spend his NBA experience competing for a championship year in, year out. And then I think you and I spoke earlier today, and it was a smart point and great read by you. But on some level, he's held the league in his fist for so long, thinking that, hey, I can do my thing, manage my body the way I do it, and sign these one deals where I get back into free agency as fast as possible in order to recoup more money as the salary cap grows and grows, because the sport has done so well, really, in my tenure in the league. But this is giving him a little more insurance than we've seen before, because guess what? He's 36 years old, entering year 18, and it seems like he's, indefatigable right now, coming off a championship, coming off fourth finals MVP. But just a short time ago, he was a 34-year-old who missed the playoffs for the first time in 13 years and had the first major injury of his career. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to drop the pretense here because I don't think he's got a problem with it. I talked to Rich Paul about it after LeBron did the deal. And what Rich basically said is, look, the rules are that you can extend out to your age 38. This is the new rule, which it's not that new, but it's the first time LeBron could take advantage of it. He was extension eligible this year, which I didn't even know he was extension eligible. I got a pretty good handle on the salary cap for your average NBA guy. I did not know that he was extension eligible, but he was. And so this offseason, not necessarily today, but this offseason was when he could do that. And so really what he did was he took the age 38 rule and pushed it to the limit. And he is now guaranteed as much money as he can be guaranteed under the rules in the NBA. And I don't even think that it's like, I do think that he's very happy. I do think that he's, very positive on where the Lakers are headed. But I think, again, based on what Rich described, is like, look, he wants to protect himself. This is what was available on the table. And so now he's fully protected. He will earn every dollar that he can. And, McMahon, I guess I get that. I think LeBron does remember what happened with Dwayne Wade with the Heat. It's not an apples to apples situation. Wade's contract had vacillated over the years, but Wade got banged up with his knees. He came to a free agent year, and the Heat were like, we would love to have you back, but not for the max. In fact, not even close to the max. I think he was offered, I don't even know, vastly less than he was offered by the Bulls. And it ended up being a problematic spot. And so I think that LeBron was like, look, I have an opportunity to lock in every dollar. I'm about to turn 36. Who knows? I don't think I'm going to get injured, but I could. I really think it might just be as simple as that.
Yeah, and the way you put it today was it's about kind of acknowledging his basketball mortality. And, just quickly for the record, I want to let our bosses know that my professional mortality would cost them about 1/100th of that if they want to extend my contract.
I got to be your agent. I got to do a little better negotiating for you.
But, that was an interesting way to put it. Having said that, if you're LeBron James, like, what situation could possibly be better than the one that really he has created for himself with the help of the Lakers front office and Rich Paul with the Lakers? I mean, they are obviously the defending champions. They will go into this season as the favorites. Anthony Davis, whatever the contract ends up being, is going to be there. He has a perennial all NBA lock who is in his prime as his basically as his business partner moving forward. And to borrow from Joakim Noah, the Hollywood is hell label, if you want to put that on LeBron, well, ain't nothing more Hollywood than being in LA where you can produce all the films that you want and practice at the Lakers facility in the morning. And so he couldn't ask for a better situation. So sure, max out his possible guarantee at this point, knowing that he's going to be on a championship contender, if not favorite, most likely at least through the course of this contract.
So Dave, there was some possibility that Anthony Davis could do a 1-year deal, and then he and LeBron could opt out together next year and give the Lakers some maneuverability. It wouldn't have. I saw some people saying, "Oh, they could sign player X." Some people said Giannis, but they could sign player X and then use the bird rights on LeBron and Anthony Davis to go over the cap, and everybody could get their money. That's not true, because there's a little thing called a cap hold. LeBron can't. He would have had to fit another max player on their books. LeBron and AD would have had to probably take a little bit less than the max, although maybe not a lot less than the max, because the Lakers only have $15 million as of right now. Before the LeBron signing, they only had $15 million on their books for next year. And had they needed to move KCP, they probably could have. But, say Giannis had become a free agent and he said, I want to be a Laker. They could have maybe each taken $4 or $5 million less and fit underneath it. It could have happened. But LeBron was not interested in that. It was made very clear to me. And so the Lakers will move forward, being an over the cap team. But it was something that maybe the Lakers could have said, hey, do you want to reconsider that? Because there was a window for them there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like a couple things, right? We all know that their plan going into the summer of 2019 after they traded for Anthony Davis was to pursue Kawhi Leonard. But if they had Kawhi Leonard last year, on paper, their chances of winning the championship, I'm sure, go up, right? But does Anthony Davis ever get to the level that he was at last year? Maybe he does eventually, but he wouldn't have found those moments last year, I don't think, with Kawhi in the mix. So I think there is some recognition that they can get it done. It doesn't have to be a big three anymore. It can be big two. And, quite frankly, LeBron, even going back to starting the big three in Miami, he was a guy who was not going to get a pay cut. Like, if you were to get LeBron, you had to pay him the max. And
I asked Rich exactly that. I spoke to Rich earlier in the week, and I said, has LeBron's position on the max changed? Because let me just say, he is chasing 6 rings. And if he gets the 6 rings, would it really make a difference about whether he made $37 million or $43 million? This is exactly how the conversation went. I said, Rich, it's not that I am saying that he should do that. I am just asking if his position has changed on that, because it's been the same for like 6 or 7 years. And the answer was it has not changed. And then today it was clear that it wasn't changed because he signed for the max.
And I mean, it's right. You could say that people like Tim Duncan, Dirk Nowitzki, Dwayne Wade, they took pay cuts in order to help their chance of winning later in their career. And that is true. You could also say that all 3 of them showed signs of declines before that happened. LeBron James was my MVP last year, should have been the MVP last year. He hasn't shown a sign of decline. So, I mean, he's earned this extension.
By the way, did you see? I'm sure you did. I'm always a little bit nervous about translated interviews, especially because this answer had nuance to it. But Giannis was asked in a Greek interview that came out in the last couple of days about the MVP, and he said LeBron's the best player. I mean, which is not a hot take, but like, this is the 2-time MVP. He said.
Well, so is that what he was? Was that was in the body of the text of that newspaper he read after the MVP announcement?
Wow.
Yeah,
it said that LeBron's the best player. That was the subhead.
MVP and king of the league are two different crowns. So it's LeBron's still the king of the league. It's still his league. I don't want to get in a whole MVP discussion. I didn't have a vote
Yes,
last year, but
thank
it would have gone to Giannis.
Low hanging
whatever.
fruit. Sorry, guys.
But yeah, nobody's disputing that. Well, maybe other than mid playoffs Tim Bontemps, nobody with any common sense is disputing that this is still LeBron James' league.
Yeah, well, I think LeBron feels that the Lakers will need to continue to add talent, and they have. They got another transaction cycle. This is the team that I thought they were going to be ready to win with. Was the year after they got AD. Like in Miami, even though technically this is year 3 in LA, they really retrofitted their team after his year 2. It was year 2 in Cleveland, year 2 in Miami, where they had the team. This is the team that I thought, and they are loaded. And so, the Lakers will still be able to add talent. They will still be able to use their exceptions year over year. They may be able to use trades. I expect them to really want to re-sign Dennis Schroeder for no other reason than he could be a trade asset down the line.
They'll always be popular for veterans who are looking for, trying to hunt a ring with the minimum. They're always going to be front of the line in buyout discussions. I mean, it's not hard to recruit to play with LeBron and AD on the Lakers.
Yeah, and I think LeBron's basically like, look, the Lakers will continue to get better and the Lakers will continue to be relevant, and it's not my responsibility to try to help them with taking less money. And I respect it. I just think that there was a window there and it was worth looking at, and I don't, only LeBron knows how much he looked at it, and they moved on. Another week of the NFL is in the books, which means it's time to look ahead to this week. And if you're a gambling man or woman, there's absolutely no better place to get in on all the action than with DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. To add to this week's excitement, DraftKings is offering a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes up for grabs. If you haven't tried DraftKings yet, head to the App Store now because you don't want to miss this. Draft your lineup and feel the sweat like never before. Every run, pass, and catch means more with DraftKings. It's simple. Just pick your lineup, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition. Nothing adds to the excitement of watching the game quite like having a shot at millions of dollars in prizes. If you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? Get in the game right from your couch. Download the DraftKings Fantasy app now and use code HOOP. For a limited time, new users can get a free shot at millions of dollars in prizes this week. Don't miss out on all of this week's action. Enter code HOOP to get a free shot at millions of dollars in prizes with your first deposit. That's code HOOP, only at DraftKings. Make it rain. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Hey, if you're a business owner, you don't need us to tell you that running a business is tough, but you might be making it harder on yourself than you need to. Don't let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down anymore. It's time to upgrade to NetSuite. Stop paying for multiple systems that don't give you the information you need when you need it. Ditch the spreadsheets and all the old software that you've outgrown. Now is the time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud business system. NetSuite gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. Everything you need, all in one place, instantaneously. Whether you're doing $1 million or hundreds of millions in revenue, save time and money with NetSuite. Join the over 22,000 companies using NetSuite right now. And let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/hoop. Schedule your free product tour right now at netsuite.com/hoop. netsuite.com/hoop. Now, I want to talk about Anthony Davis because the fact that we are talking about a LeBron contract before an Anthony Davis contract, that one caught me by surprise. So from what I understand, even though there were other people in the league, it was not just me, but there were other people in the league wondering if Anthony Davis was waiting on Giannis to see if Giannis was going to become a free agent next year or not. Basically, this has been described to me, Dave, as he is looking at not just this contract, but where he wants to position himself in the next contract relative to where his body will be, relative to where the salary cap will be. So he's not looking at it like, should I take a 1-year deal and then opt out? Should I take a 2-year plus 1 player option deal to match LeBron now? He's looking, is it a good idea to be a free agent again in 2022? Or should it be a better idea to be a free agent again in 2023 when there may be a new CBA and there may be, the economy, the NBA economy improves? Or does it make more sense to be a free agent in 2024 where I can add 4 years onto that? And so I don't understand why this calculation has taken so much time. But from what I understand, basically Anthony Davis is looking at over a dozen different iterations of what he wants to plan for his career. 2-year contract now, followed by 4-year contract, 4-year contract now, followed by 4-year contract. I could go on and on, all these iterations. And that is the quote unquote holdup, that LeBron's negotiation, such as it was, and AD's are independent of each other. And it wasn't like AD was waiting for this or anything. That's the way it's been described to me.
We need, and I don't ever want to lose him as a colleague because he's probably the most universally respected and liked colleague we have at ESPN NBA coverage. That'd be Bobby Marks. We need to get Rich Paul and Anthony Davis Bobby Marks' phone number, because they could have figured this out weeks ago. Bobby would have told them. He would have had them set them straight as to the best option. But based on what we've traditionally known, it seems to be this will lead to a 2+1 deal. I don't see any other deal making more sense.
I think 2+1, because while we do know the salary cap for the next 2 years, which most of the years you do not, we also know that the CBA will be in effect. And if you get he has 8 years experience now, he plays 2 more years, he gets 10 years experience, he gets 5% more of the salary cap on his max, which is worth $7 million or so more. So 7 or 8, depending on where we are in 2 years. So the conventional decision would be sign for 2 years, like Dave said, opt out, and then make your decision from there. But
before you're 30 years old. I mean, that's what's scary about AD. He'll be midway through his prime at that point.
And that's why he's looking at the next contract. And really, in all honesty, he's looking at the next contract. I mean, I don't think he's like, now I will sign a 2 and then I will sign a 4 and then I will sign a 4. I don't think he's seriously looking at that, but I think he wants to look and have it all lined up. And I will say that I don't know if AD thought signing a 5-year deal in retrospect in New Orleans ended up being the smartest move, considering he forced his way out before it was over. Now, again, I'm not saying that he has any doubts with the Lakers, but I'm just saying that once you've been through something like that, it will affect maybe the way you look at things going forward.
Well, and it's like you said, it's a way to maximize his earnings. But I know you're not trying to say this, but a long-term commitment to the Lakers with LeBron as your sidekick is a little different than a long-term commitment, on Bourbon Street.
Dave, do you think so? The Lakers did something that was relatively rare this last year. They won the championship without paying the luxury tax. It's only happened, I think, 3 times in the last 17 or 18 years. Back when I first started covering the league, it's hard to even fathom this, but they didn't know whether they were going to have a luxury tax year to year. They wouldn't announce it until the end of the year. Believe it or not, they would. You'd be going through the season, and they would be like, February. Sounds like there's going to be a luxury tax. Pass it on. Luxury tax. Pass it on. So there were some teams that ended up being taxpayers that didn't know they were going to be taxpayers. But in the modern era, it's only happened like 2 or 3 times. The Lakers won it without paying the tax. They will be a taxpayer this year, but a relatively low taxpayer because they triggered the hard cap by using the full mid-level on Montrezl Harrell. But you, knowing the Lakers as you do, and you've covered them on and off for 12, 14 years, I don't think that the Lakers are going to have any problem spending into the tax with where they are as a franchise, in the coming years. And I don't think that would be an issue at all. It certainly wasn't for LeBron as he committed.
Yeah, I think, when you saw Kevin Arnovitz's story earlier on during the pandemic about them applying for a federal loan, it definitely raised some eyebrows about the state of the Lakers. But I have to believe that with the Jeannie Buss and the Buss family still being the principal owners, that they will continue to field a contender so long as the window is open, and basically as long as you have Anthony Davis in a uniform, the window is open, and pay whatever it takes. The irony of this is that the luxury tax became a fixture and a graduated fixture because of the Lakers. Because when they first introduced the luxury tax, where it was just a dollar-to-dollar penalty for whatever you spent over the salary cap, the luxury tax threshold, you had to pay out an extra dollar. The Lakers, rub their hands together. That's no problem. We got you. Here's our check. We got the biggest local TV deal in the league. The new luxury tax, penalty, where if you are in it for multiple years, the repeater tax, where it graduates and it's $1.50 for every dollar, and $2.50, and $3.50. I think how high does it go, Brian? $4.50?
Unlimited.
Unlimited,
right?
Right?
In theory, I mean,
Right.
I think the Cavs paid the repeater with LeBron, and I think it was 4.5.
Yeah, there you go. I think that's how it's been. It's 4.5. They, it's pretty remarkable. Their championship in 2020 for many reasons was remarkable, but the fact they were able to not use what they used as
basically to use a year of the tax
market advantage. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was good for them. All right. So I assume AD will be signing shortly, but I also got the impression that this decision was difficult. So, but ultimately he's going to be back with the Lakers, and they're going to have LeBron. They're going to have a good team. And I will say this: LeBron could have gotten an option in this contract. He could have made that last year an option just to maximize, just to make sure, right? Because why not? Why not have flexibility? It would have cost him a little bit of money. It would have cost him, long story short, he couldn't have got the same raise within the contract if it was an option year versus a full contract. But it would have cost him around $1 million. He would have signed for around 84 million instead of 85, which seems like it's worth it, to have an option, especially if you're worth hundreds of millions. But he didn't do it. And I'm not sure if it was the Lakers going, no. But whatever it was, because we talked on this podcast last week about options, about, how options can get a little prickly. And, there's only a few players in the league who can demand an option no matter what. Well, here was LeBron James. He had a chance for an option here. And he said, no, we'll take every dollar.
A week after you said that NBA owners were passing those things around like potato chips.
Yeah. Well, and also I thought Brandon Ingram might get one and he didn't. So that was interesting. All right. One more thing, Dave.
Wait, guys, let me interrupt real quick, because I want you get both of you guys' opinion, because I agree with you. This was the most surprising LeBron contract. Do either of you believe this was the last LeBron contract he'll sign?
He doesn't look like he's slowing down to me. If he avoids injury, I don't see why he can't play till he's in his 40s.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be Tom Brady-esque.
I know, Dave, you talked about this today, and I know it's something that LeBron has talked about. And I see other people talking about it too, that 2023 is when his son, Bronny, is scheduled to graduate from Sierra Canyon. I don't like putting that pressure on Bronny. And I recognize that he is LeBron James Jr., and that pressure is inherent, and he goes to a school that plays a national schedule on national television, and he has documentary cameras around him. He certainly is an extremely talented player. If you've seen him play, you can tell he's in spectacular physical condition. He's very dedicated to his sport. But I don't like the pressure that he either A, has to be an NBA player, or B, has to be good enough to be able to get drafted out of high school.
Yeah, it's to act like this kid. I mean, he's a high school kid, whatever the circumstance, or he's a high school kid. To act like,
and I'd say that to LeBron too. Like, don't put pressure on your son.
Yeah, to act like if he's not a straight out of high school lottery pick, it's a disappointment, is just, that's not right.
I agree with that. I would say two things. One, for us to discuss it. I mean, it's you're just acknowledging a part of reality right now.
They're discussing it.
I
They're
mean,
discussing it. Like
uninterrupted
we're not
during the
getting
2017 finals, posted a video where it was LeBron and it was Doris Burke and Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy behind the scenes, the kind of like powwow that the broadcast crew will have with the stars before a finals broadcast. And normally that is no cameras there, off the record. Well, LeBron's cameras filmed it and put it out there for the world. That LeBron said the greatest accomplishment he could ever have in his NBA career was playing in the NBA alongside his son. So, I mean, whether that's pressure or not, I think LeBron said many times that basketball isn't pressure. What pressure is missing 80 days of school in the third grade. What pressure is having to move from house to house because, it's hard for your single parent household to find steady work. And so, it's just where we are with the James family.
That is everything that you said there is accurate. I agree with all of it. And LeBron certainly has a better understanding of this than just about anybody in the world. But I would just say, do him a favor and give him a break. Do him a favor and give him a break.
And if he doesn't get a break, he can at least get a 2-way contract.
So one more thing I want to talk about in LA. Paul George goes on the All the Smoke podcast with Steven Jackson and
a lot of smoke.
Matt Barnes, and they lived up to its hype on this. Now I really do not want. I'm going to try not to take him out of context because it's a long conversation, which I've listened to. Dave, he just threw Doc Rivers under the bus 3 or 4 times in this interview. And I'm not saying that Doc Rivers already has officially been designated as the scapegoat. He got fired. Montrezl Harrell apparently was in the same boat because they didn't even really offer him. So he was sort of blamed too. And Montrezl Harrell was terrible in the Nuggets series, and Doc Rivers did not perform well. But Paul George totally threw Doc under the bus. Among the things he said was, 1, they didn't practice enough. 2, that Doc didn't use him correctly, that he used him more like Ray Allen or JJ Redick, basically running floppy action, which in the NBA is where a guy basically gets a screen so that he can catch and shoot on the wing, as opposed to the way he likes to play, which is to get some post-ups and get pick and rolls. Although I saw Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer tweeted today that Paul George actually had the highest amount of pick and rolls last season than any other season in his career. And
by far.
What else? He said that they didn't make adjustments during the playoff series. I think there was even another 1 or 2 little things that he threw in there. Paul George.
I want to know, did this coaching just happen in games 5, 6, and 7 against the Nuggets? Like, did he change up? Because whatever the coaching was doing, they had a 3-1 lead against the Nuggets. Like, what was Doc Rivers' shooting line in game 7?
I mean, Paul George is the guy who said that he had and it's not his fault per se, but that he just mentally really struggled with the bubble, and it led to him to play very, very poorly. I mean, that's a consequence of what happened, and that's something he had to deal with. Is that Doc's fault?
Look, I don't want to be insensitive, but Paul George has offered a whole lot of excuses, and I have not heard him take any accountability.
Other than the fact that he said he was mentally struggling.
Yeah, I don't know. Paul George he's a guy who says a lot of things that should really leave you scratching your head, whether it's blaming Doc Rivers here, whether it's all the trash he was talking about Damian Lillard, the same Damian Lillard who splashed a 37-footer in his face and waved bye-bye to send him home the previous year. I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of clutter going on in Paul George's head.
Dave, I think this is a hell of a referendum season on Paul George because he is asked to be traded twice. One at Indiana, once at Oklahoma City, has been accommodated both times to situations that he liked. Maybe he wouldn't have picked Oklahoma City, but he re-signed there. Loved his opportunity to go to LA. It is on him to deliver. And I mean, I guess I respect him being honest, which I mean, I don't want to criticize a player who I think is being honest, but that was a concerning. I think the Clippers, I think their fans probably were feeling good about things because Ty Lue met with the media and said, "Hey, the really good thing here is that Kawhi and Paul are healthy. They're going to have a full ability to practice and play together from day one. We're going to change some things up." Ty was very, very, it was not unlike when Ty took over midseason with the Cavs for David Blatt. And he's like, "This is my plan. This is what I'm going to do." And the Cavs did get better. It was a very steadying interview that I felt that he gave. And then you have Paul George come out and say this, and it's disconcerting if you're a Clipper fan, I think.
I think the best quality I've seen from Tyronn Lue in the years that I've covered him up close and now, not as close day to day, but certainly paying attention to his moves. He's a guy who can communicate. He can bring people together. He can juggle different agendas. So that's no dig at Doc Rivers. He's a championship head coach in his own right. But I think Ty could have the right touch in order, because guess what? Like, yes, if Doc Rivers was using Paul George the wrong way, that's one thing. Well, there has to be some sort of way for Paul George to be able to communicate that with his coach. And so, maybe they live and they learn. And certainly Tyronn Lue is someone who knows how to take feedback from sometimes people with different agendas on his own team and find a way to make both parties happy. And you guys can read between the lines on that one.
Well, not everybody was always happy. One guy asked for a trade.
Not after 2016, he didn't.
How about successful?
There you go. Yeah, that's right. Greg Popovich would be mad upset with me for suggesting that happiness is the thing that matters. Success, wins. Getting the chance to stay in LA and live the life of an NBA player in LA and not get traded and blow up that thing.
That's a good point. Because, I don't know who would sit him down and say that, but I would say, Paul, if you like this situation, if you like playing with the Clippers, you like being in LA, time to fulfill your end of the bargain. And I understand he was hurt last year for part of the season, and he definitely made that point that he felt like he was behind all year. I understand that, but that doesn't explain what was happening in that bubble in September. His late training camp from the previous September doesn't explain what's happening in that bubble. All right, we got to go. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, McMahon. Thank you to Troy in Connecticut spinning the dials for this, even though there's no dials, it's mice and keys.